what it is. So it's nice to see you all here on this nice, great sunny day. Thanks for being here. We have two great presentations this morning. First, I just want to say thank you for all who attended and or volunteered with the wine walk. It was another really great event. We had such good comments from not only the merchants, but the wineries and the people attending. I got 2 personal notes that just said, hey, thanks for doing this. And they actually had a few suggestions, which we appreciate. Those of us that plan it can't actually experience it. So all of that feedback is really good. It's an important fundraiser and a good model for us to do with our volunteer capacity. And again, this idea of bringing the wineries downtown and getting people into stores is just, it really works for downtown. So very happy about that. We are also well into first quarter tax credit program. This is the program where a Washington business can make a donation to a Washington Main Street community. Of course, we hope it's Ridgefield Main Street, and receive a 75% credit of that donation in the business's B&O tax account. So we are busily working on that. We have a couple of new collateral pieces that we're sending along with it that really shows where donations go, where we spend our money, and what the impact is on those projects to downtown and the community. So we're working a lot this year on really expressing the story of impact and how things are different because we all work together downtown. So very much appreciate that. So what we're going to do this morning is we are going to have Randy Mueller from the Port of Ridgefield. Actually, and Steve's going to go twice. But first we're going to have the Waterfront Park update and presentation. So Randy Mueller, thank you.
You bet. And we're going to go real quick through those slides because we're not going to go.
Okay.
We're not going to hit all of them. So, hi everybody. Randy with the Port. I'm going to talk to you today about the joint Waterfront Park project that we're working on with our friends at the City of Ridgefield. It's a joint project to plan our waterfront park. This has been on the books for a couple decades. We've always said as a community that we want a waterfront park. First, we had a giant industrial operation down there in the way, and then we had a massive environmental cleanup in the way. So now that those are all out of the way, the work can actually begin in earnest. And so there is this effort, jointly funded by the city and the port. There are a lot of questions whose answers we still don't know. Who's going to run the park? Who's going to own the land under the park? But what we do know is we want a waterfront park. We want it to be the best it could be, and so that's where we're really partnering on is kind of the design and concept around the waterfront park. Now, I'm not going to give you the exact same content that we've been having at the open house public meetings. We'll breeze through a lot of the slides that have been covered previously because a lot of this might be a repetition for you. Probably the most important takeaway just right off the bat is that we're doing a series of open houses to get public input on the design and different elements of the design. And we're asking people their feedback all along the way. And then it's also online. The city's hosting on Ridgefield Roundtable, a place where every survey question we ask people in here at an open house, you can answer online on Ridgefield Roundtable about, do I like this element or that element, or what piece do I like the most? So it's a great, I think, we heard there were close to 150 responses so far. The survey is still going to be open, I think, until April, so there's still plenty of time. But if you have not yet taken the survey, or if you have not yet, if your friends haven't, please, share with your neighborhood, share with your friends and neighbors far and wide. The more input we get, the better as far as things people like. So I had a really good question the other day. Someone said, I don't see playgrounds, or I don't see playground equipment. And you're right, you don't. That would be a good thing to point out. So leave a comment. So yes, lots of great points being raised. So if we can go through. So this is the area we're talking about. None of this has really been cast in stone, but this is the area that the Port Commission has set aside for a waterfront park of the port-owned property down on the waterfront. That's the area in green. We get a lot of questions about things like we heard you're going to do a multi-purpose parking lot up there in the blue area by the boat launch for the overflow boaters, or the city's going to do a pedestrian bridge over the railroad tracks at Division, or the port's going to do in-water work out in the river, adding day docks, and all those things are going to happen, but part of the nature of tackling all this work that needs to happen is kind of dividing it into manageable chunks. And this is the waterfront park chunk, is the area in green. There are other things going on all around it that will affect it, but we're focusing right now on the park. You can go to the next slide. This is a little bit about, yeah, that's fine, we'll keep going. So I think we all know what it's like today. That was the first open house. Oh, we're moving now. Here's something that we've heard from folks. And this has been great. So the consultants put this together. You see some quotes there from folks that have been starting with the first survey, some quotes from them. You can go to the next one. There's been a lot of input, and it's been great. So think of a spectrum from super rural park to super urban, like Vancouver Waterfront Glass and Metal Park. And we showed people the spectrum, and right off the bat, they said the stuff on the urban side, no one's really interested. One person out of the entire survey said that was what they wanted. So it's really quickly condensed to this feel that what we're hearing from the community is more either, suburban, rural, kind of natural setting, not a bunch of glass and metal and concrete, which isn't a big surprise. You can keep going. There, that's the graph, the bar graph version of the same data. You can see there was just like the one person over on the other side, probably involved with the Vancouver waterfront, lives here. So we can keep going. So, and then a lot of, actually we can go, here's some pictures of some kayak storage, some trails, some more quotes. People were able to pick from a different menu of things they would like, and the print's too smaller to read, but that's all available online. So those are the top choices that were kind of emerged out of that bar graph with all those different responses. Number one, trail connection to the refuge. We already have that. How can we improve it? Specifically, the north section of the property connecting that last little bit up to the visitor center, the land bridge up there in the visitor center. The waterfront trail. Again, we already have a trail. We could certainly have a better trail. Habitat enhancements, and then some sort of event space. So those were the four so far, and again, more responses are still coming in, but that's what we've heard to date. And keep going. Also, talked about culture, art, and history. So that was another piece that we heard a lot of feedback from folks, and not just, it's not just like, local, last 100 years, but going back to like the peoples of the Columbia River, there's a lot of tribal history around, and really the full spectrum. Also culture, we have a lot of different events down there, both the city does, the port does, community groups do. It's a very popular place to have events. That's a piece of the art as well. So we count that. Keep going. So those are the three. Those are the three draft guiding principles that have emerged out of the first third of the work, which was really asking people, what kind of things they wanted in a park. Probably the most boring third of the work too, honestly, because we didn't have any cool pictures to show people or design concepts. So that's what we got, and that was really good because that set us up for the next piece of work. We can keep going. And so what the landscape architects at Walker Macy, and I'll back up a little bit. So the Port and City conducted a joint process to hire a team to do this work, and who we ended up hiring as a team with a company called Walker Macy. They're primarily landscape architects. They have done many, many, many waterfront parks in different communities around the Northwest. Their experience was something that really attracted us to having them on the team, including properties that were on brownfields, contaminated environmental brownfields like the Port Waterfront property is, because there's a lot of extra special work you have to do with a site like that. And so these folks have done that before, and I have never built a waterfront park on a contaminated brownfield. So, you definitely, you want to hire folks that have that experience and know what they're doing, and have a long resume of that. And then they're being helped by the folks with Mull Foster and Alonji. And if you know MFA, they actually have their roots locally. If you know Jim Mull, local firm, but now they're very big, and they were the environmental consultants on the cleanup, and they are the most familiar firm with kind of the situation down there below the ground. because it is very complex and complicated, and you definitely want someone like that on your team so they know how to work with that right. So each one of the, and we're not going to go through like the architects did, because again, I can't explain it like they can, but you'll see some of these things. There's activities. Each park layout that they've put together has an activity zone and a natural zone. So imagine an event lawn with like really close grass that's like, perfect for putting your chairs and watching a concert. Natural zones are going to be more like a trail through some taller grass with wildflowers, that kind of thing. So not really like manicured, golf course kind of grass. So keep going. This is almost the same slide as before, but they call out some of those outside elements around that are going to influence and impact the site. There's a lot going on, as you can see, from the pedestrian overpass, the shared parking lot, the boat launch will impact that, the day docks in the water, and again, the trail to the connection to the refuge. Next slide. So there's 3 concepts. They made sure not to call them options. I might slip and call them options. But this first one essentially puts all the activity, so north is to your left. North is closest to Carty Lake. So this concept puts the activities over on the north side and then has a natural zone along the entire shoreline. We can keep going. And this is what it looks like. There's a couple different views. So you see that event lawn up there kind of next to the pump house, where we have the pump house and where the kiosk and the entrance to the Carty Lake unit of the refuge is. And then you see other passive stuff, kayak launch. Again, I cannot do this justice, so I urge you to go online on ridgefieldroundtable.com and see this in depth. Next slide. There's another version of the same picture, kind of calling out some of those elements. So again, kind of the theme from this one, if you had to take the theme away, was all the events are going to be up at the north end by the pump house and Carty Lake, and then the rest of it is not the event space, it's park space. They can talk to you more in more depth about handicap access. Right now the kayak launch isn't handicap accessible, and it does need to be, and so that's something that all 3 plans show different ways to make the kayak launch handicap accessible at the end of Division Street. Next slide. Concept 2. Basically, the activity part of the site is in the middle, not at the north end. It's really at the middle. So that's the difference here. So go to the next slide, and you'll see how that lays out. So you've moved the event lawn a little farther south. You'll see at the end of Division Street a little building there at the end of the cul-de-sac, and that would be both bathrooms. We need bathrooms down there. That I think everyone's come away with that. And then also, what else could you do? We've talked about things like kayak storage. There's City of Gig Harbor operates a municipal kayak storage building on their waterfront. And so Gig Harbor, has built that. You can rent a locker, store your kayak. You can come down in your lunch hour, unlock your kayak, go out, kayak in the river, throw it back in the locker, and go back up. So that's the kind of thing. And they have bigger spaces if you have a canoe or something too. So looking at options like that. Next slide. Again, just a different perspective of the same thing, showing some pictures. These are really, and I really like having the representative examples, because when we talk about what would a kayak storage facility look like, or what does a handicapped kayak launch or kayak ramp look like, they've gathered some really good example pictures from other communities. So when you're going through on there, I'd urge you to take extra time and look at the pictures from other places, because it really, for me, it really helps go, oh, that's what they're talking about, more than a cartoon drawing. Next slide. And then the last one, really, they definitely thought outside the box, and this was shifting the activities to the south end of the site, down by the boat launch. So if we can go to the next slide, you'll see that's what this is. So the event lawn space is actually up there, kind of between right now we have the boat launch and then the overflow parking for the boat launch. You see the event lawn being there. Now there's a benefit to this layout in that you have more of your events, the different things going on closer together. You have more of a natural space as a transition from from event space to refuge, it's more of a gradual transition there. We did tell them that one of the things you'll notice is the event lawn kind of eats into what was the employment area of the site for the port, and so we did tell them to make sure that if they're going to add any on one part, to make sure they took away on another part to keep it balanced, so there wasn't any net loss of employment land. So that's what you see there. So we add a little more at the south end, we take a little away at the north end of the park, but essentially shift things around. If you go to the next slide, is the other view of that same space. And then some really good representative examples. You see where we talk about having like amphitheater style, there's a picture there of what that amphitheater lawn style space would look like, or could look like, what's been done in other places. A hand carry boat chute. So that's where you have steps and you have a wheelchair ramp if you need it to haul your kayak down. But if you can do the stairs, that chute, that's the nice thing, is you just throw your kayak in the chute and you walk down the steps, holding, and your kayak slides down the chute, which is neat. It's kind of like those shopping cart things at Target. So, not motorized though. So those are the three, and you see they're kind of north, center, and south as far as where the event space goes, but there are other elements that are different in each of those as well. You can keep going. Oh, hey, I guess that was it. The other thing that I would encourage you when you're looking at this on Ridgefield Roundtable is the consultants don't just want to hear like, I like option 1 and not option 3, but tell them that the things you like about those concepts or the things you don't like. Like, I don't like necessarily having the event right up next to the refuge, or I do like the kayak chute, or something like that. Because honestly what'll happen, and we don't have much experience with this, but the city has a lot of experience, is as you start master planning these parks, the final result's kind of going to look like all of those. You're going to kind of take the best, hopefully the best elements of all three options, and those are going to refine themselves into the best option and the preferred alternative. So that's what's going on right now. The process, we were originally shooting for, it was a pretty compressed timeline, because we were thinking we'd be applying for some grants at the beginning of May, and we wanted to have this all done and ready. Since then we've pivoted a little, and so that's not necessarily a constraint, which allows us to, we've been able to spread out this timeline a little more. So like right now, where we were going to have the public survey input open right now on this set of drawings for a couple weeks, now it's open for a whole month. So we're getting lots of input, and we can stretch out that time and make sure we get lots of feedback. I think we just saw the kind of the revised timeline last night, is we're still looking at kind of wrapping this all up maybe around the end of August. So what has to happen is kind of the last stage is both at the city level with the city council and at the port level with the port commission. Both entities would buy off on whatever the final preferred alternative draft master plan, because it's a master plan, but it is still kind of draft, and that would kind of wrap up that work. So that's a lot of me talking. Steve, did I miss anything that you can think of?
No, that was great. I mean, I don't know if people have questions about it though that we might be able to.
Yeah, definitely. Any questions? Yes.
Is the boundary pretty much where the walking trail is now? Is that
So for
the
1 and
space?
2, options 1 and 2, Mary Kay, can you back up?
You want this one?
Yeah, perfect. That's the slide. So for 1 and 2, you're essentially seeing that's the existing hard surface trail. When you walk the waterfront trail, that trail is what we've been using in planning for about 14 years as our guideline for what would be the development space and what would be the park or open space. The third one, that's where I said the consultants kind of colored outside the lines a bit, which we told them was fine as long as they made sure to keep, we have to, the struggle for the port is obviously it has to be financially feasible in order for us to pull it off. So it can't be all park, or that won't pay the bills. So if we did add more park space in one park, we had to take it off in another park to keep the same. It's that's about 7 or 8 acres. Depends on where you measure to or how water mark, but it's pretty big. It's all of our You think Vancouver, Kaminista, they all have miles of waterfront and miles of shoreline, and we just have a couple thousand, we have about 2,000 feet of shoreline in Ridgefield, because we've got the refuge is the border on the north, and then McCuddy's and on the south, and so we don't have miles of shoreline like other communities. Other questions? Anybody else? Seeing none. Dean?
What's your ultimate goal here with time frame wise, budget wise, and then how you're gonna pay for this?
Sure. So let's start with, just because I've been thinking about it the most, is how do we pay for it? And probably through a number of sources. Just some of them would be, obviously the ports contributed a lot and would continue to do so. We would see a developer, as we're working on getting a master developer for the upland side. It's certainly appropriate for them to contribute to the waterfront park. They're also going to have, there's a whole bunch of, there's a big lift there. There's roads and utilities and everything else. Grants, we're going to apply for every grant we can, kind of find, or appropriations. So we're pretty good about both at the state and the federal level going and talking to our delegations, get earmarks, things like that. You might have heard we're using tax increment financing. We've got a proposal ready for Port Commission consideration in April, and tax increment financing could contribute some of that. So likely just a whole hodgepodge of sources we'd have to cobble together. Volunteer labor, the Lions have stepped forward and offered to help where appropriate. If it's depending on the city's role, it could be that the city plays a role in either owning or maintaining the park as well. The city has a lot of parks to maintain, and there's a lot of budget pressure there. So yeah, I don't think we'll leave any stone unturned as far as how we're doing, how we're funding it. Timing, it's interesting because unlike an area that is not a park that we're proposing to turn into a park, it's kind of a park now. I mean, you can go down there on the waterfront trail now, you can walk to the refuge, you can throw your kayak in. So in that respect, it's already open, but how I suspect you'll see this play out is instead of like writing one big check and having one big park built, probably a series of incremental steps. So imagine we get a $500,000 check for the new kayak launch, or the Lions volunteer to help put in picnic benches, or something like that. It could be a number of incremental steps over time instead of just, tomorrow's the park opens.
So the time frame, roughly 10 years, 5 years, 3 years?
Well, it's open today. When it will be done, that's contingent on the funding materializing. It's all like so many of the things we do. It's all based on when we can get that money.
But you must have a target. Are you trying to get it in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah. So when we think about developing the waterfront, if you look at Vancouver waterfront, they built Grant Street Pier. They did the really nice stuff. You create the nice thing people want to be next to, they want to develop next to before, and then you attract the development. Same at Kaminista. They built that waterfront park. Now they're developing the upland. For us, we ask, what's our thing that people, what's the star that people want to be next to? And it's already there because it's the river and the refuge. It's not a structure, it's not a concrete pier. We already have the great thing people want to be next to. It's just a matter of improving it. That said, Dean, I would love to be able to start, moving dirt next summer. And, do we get it all done? Probably not. There's one of the challenges with this site is it's contaminated, which we can do the work and we can do it and protect human health and the environment. But as you can imagine, the paperwork is a little more involved than just an uncontaminated green field. So that takes longer. Department of Ecology moves slower. The Corps of Engineers doesn't move at all. So all those things, like the in-water piece will probably be the last piece. Not because it's the last important. It's one of the most important things I want to see. But the permitting right now for Corps of Engineers is 3 years.
No.
I know. Sorry.
No, I'm just curious. I know this is a tough project. I'm just saying, are we going to have increments of, are you trying to get stuff done in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? We know this is going to hopefully not turn into the overpass, but what? And then what do you think the ultimate budget's going to be here that would be required for you guys to get
I don't know. Some comparison. I think the closest model we have is if you look at the Port Camps Washougal and their waterfront park, and that was about, between state grant funds and other funds, that was about a $3 million park. Now there's been inflation since then, so the same thing would probably be $4 million now. But that just and that's just ballpark, because this is in many respects very different too. So.
Thank you very much
Yes.
for your honest answer.
You bet. Rob?
I have a question about the trees. So I know the membrane is down 2 feet. Are you allowed to plant, can the tree root ball and go beyond the 2-foot membrane? Or do you have to like make a bigger membrane down so the tree roots can't go into the contaminated area?
Yeah, so for everybody, there's we cleaned up as much contaminants as we could. There's remaining contaminants that the Department of Ecology has said leave there, but put down, it's actually a fabric, so it's not like a membrane, so it is permeable, water passes through it. And then we put clean dirt on top of that. And that clean dirt was from the I-5 interchange project in 2009. It's 2 to 10 feet deep in places all over the site, capping it. We can work in the contaminated dirt, there's just extra rules. Also, as far as the tree side, we have a list of plants, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to have a tree or a bush with a taproot, something that's going to go way down and draw contaminants up, because that's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do there. So we have a whole list of plants that we can use, and then ones that we can't, because they would actually defeat the purpose. So we can. It's a little more complicated. Like if there's a tree with a big root ball, you'd have to dig a big hole, and then you'd have to put clean dirt in there, and then put the tree. So, it may impact the kind of plantings you see, but there's a reason for it.
Thank you.
I know that it's the park that you're dealing with, but you're gonna probably have to have some type of pilings. Is that something that you incorporate as you move along, or, like for the kayak launch and whatever?
Yeah, the in-water piece will definitely have to have pilings. We pulled 73 pilings out as part of the cleanup, and we get credit for those.
Right.
So we can put some back in, and that'll be a piece of it. And yeah, the cleanup that we did it wasn't just the upland. There's a section of the river that we, same thing, scooped out contaminated stuff and capped it with clean material. So if we're gonna go back and penetrate that, again, Department of Ecology is gonna wanna see that we're not bringing up contaminated dirt. We can do it, and we plan on it. There certainly would be pilings for all of that.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I wanna make sure we leave enough time for the second half and the parking presentation. But of course, I think everyone in here knows me and knows how to reach me. But the real important thing is, if you have not yet done the survey on Ridgefield Roundtable, or if you have family members or friends that have not done it, please refer them to that. We're really trying to get as much engagement as we can from the community and hear from them. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Such great information. And next in the jam-packed program today, about a year ago, we had Steve and Chuck Green here to talk about downtown parking. And they said, hey, we're interested too, we're gonna do a study. And today we have them back with study results and more information. So Chuck Green is the Director of Public Works, and Steve Stewart is our City Manager.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to do just a brief introduction. Mary Kay, thank you for having us back out. And the brief introduction is really what Mary Kay already stated. We came in about a year ago because there were questions, concerns, comments about downtown parking. How might we be able to do better in providing access and opportunity for our downtown merchants to have people be able to park? We started that work. Our Public Works Director, Chuck Green, started working on ideas that came from this group when we came and talked with you. We've been doing the work since then. Chuck's come up with a couple of different kind of levels of changes that might be able to help us increase capacity that we wanted to walk by you. And then the next step after this is get ideas from you about, what do you think? What do you think about the concepts that we are bringing forward today? We want to hear back from you. And then we have members of our council, city council, who are here today to be able to hear that conversation, because the next step after this is take these ideas to them. Because there are a fair number of the ideas that you'll hear this morning that really are related to policy and budget choices that the city council makes. So we want to make sure that they're hearing the conversation, and ultimately they're going to be making some of the decisions associated with it. One of the things I want to say just as we get started with it is it's a great transition from the waterfront park conversation. When we think about a waterfront park, we don't just think about it in an isolated fashion. I know when you look at the pictures, you see the concepts. The concepts look like they are isolated to the waterfront, but they're not. They're connected. They're connected to the refuge on the north. They're connected to downtown via Pioneer. They'll also be connected to downtown via a multimodal overpass that we already are starting pre-design on at Division. So we want it to be connected for the purposes of people, drawing them in, bringing them into downtown, having them be able to walk back and forth, have them bike back and forth, have them be able to be connected that way, but also people are going to be parking. We want them to be able to do that. We want them to be able to park in downtown, be able to walk down to the waterfront, come back, park in downtown, walk a loop, bike a loop, come back in, shop, stay, play here. So we really do think of this as an integrated opportunity for not only parking for the downtown, but also how might that integrate with the waterfront and the development we're going to see there. Because we're going to need it. You know, is the more activity opportunities that we bring, you think about, you see all the amphitheater seating there, you know, like lots of people say, oh, that looks great, we'll have events. And where are they going to park? That's our world. As we think about, oh, that'd be a great event, where are they going to park? So those are the kinds of things that we need to be talking through, and I know that Chuck's been talking. So with all of that said, I want to leave lots of time for Chuck. Chuck's going to run the presentation. Chuck Green, our Public Works Director, has been doing all the work on this. Thank you, Chuck. Yes. And so we'll leave it to Chuck, and then we're just going to be, we'll take questions whenever Chuck says it's okay.
Do you want to advance the slides? Do you want me to?
You can do it because you want.
Go for it.
less
Yeah,
than
go for it.
available within my hands.
Go for
So
it.
happy Pi Day, everybody. And so why don't we go to the first slide? So just to give you kind of a background, most of you are here for that, but we had a parking inventory done back in 2016. There's been various attempts to refresh that or look at changes that have happened. We've had quite a few changes since 2016, but especially in the last 5 to 7 years, and I've listed some of those here. The biggest one probably for parking is we no longer have a pull truck route going down 3rd over to Division. And so there was a lot of no parking along that to accommodate pull trucks, which also gives us a great opportunity to convert them back to public parking spaces. Why don't you go to the next slide? So last time we heard a bunch of concerns about availability, especially on Pioneer and Main. Lack of ADA parking, we've actually, as we've been going and talking to people, they've identified a couple locations where they would like additional parking spaces, not an entire street of disabled parking, but spots that could be available to them because they're finding it difficult to get there. Probably the one thing that's resonated with a couple of the businesses in the core is loading zones. We have one designated loading zone, and that's in front of Overland Park. That was a council action last year. So what do we do otherwise? Because there is a need for businesses to offload their goods. And then what about short-term versus long-term parking? We do have 15-minute parking areas. We have no limit parking areas, and we have a few where there's a variety of limits. We have an old zone right in front of this building that is now no parking. It started out as no parking during school hours. That's when the elementary school is here. And so that's another thing that we took a look at and talked to the school district about as well. Let's see, talked about the pull truck route. Another one is big boats trying to get down Pioneer to the boat launch. Before, when Division was open, they could turn down 3rd and head down Division. There's still the issue about how you navigate Pioneer. Now that Division's closed, they'll have to go across the overpass. This is one of the trickier ones because right now people have to, either the boat and trailer have to kind of pull off in let traffic around, and more often, traffic has to pull to the side and let the boats go through. And it's a great traffic calming device because it slows traffic down to about 5 miles an hour. But that's the one that the trade-offs of how to fully accommodate them were almost non-starters in a couple of cases. Like, means probably taking parking on one side of Pioneer, widening the rest of Pioneer to allow for full width traffic lanes, but then you lose a side of parking, which is quite a bit. So it pretty much became a non-starter. We do have a solution that we'd like to vet for that one as well. We have talked about C-Trans service, like a shuttle, like mainly during events like the 4th of July parade. There are other few options, and I think we've done a couple times. We've done the C-Trans shuttle, and then there's also site distance issues. As the port's been moving the bus barn through the development review process, there's an alley that goes behind that building. Try to get onto Pioneer, it's really the vision blocked by vehicles, same on 4th. And so we do have, took a look at that and got ideas there as well. As Steve mentioned, the waterfront parking, there is a tie-in. The waterfront process is kind of working through it, but in that partnership that's gone on between the city and the port, how that waterfront parking develops does affect what parking we need in downtown. So there are some things that we can do without council policy action. There's some things we have done. We did get a few complaints about people going the wrong way in South Main. We're supposed to be going south in South Main. Some people have gone north in South Main, and that's a no-no. So what we figured when we went down and looked what's happening down there, people come out of Eagles View Park and there's no signs really in front of them. So I think, well, we'll just go straight back to Pioneer because that's the way we came in. We put down a right turn arrow, or excuse me, a left turn arrow southbound to get the message to those leaving Eagles View Park that it's one way. You got to go right, you got to go over to the 3rd and get out that way. I haven't heard any complaints since then, but if you have heard anything, I'd like to know, because we think that at least resolved it. Most of the opportunities for people to go the wrong way just because they didn't know. We did look at the signage down there. There are pretty good signage about one way, do not enter. So hopefully that's resolved it.
It's helped a lot.
Good. Also, as mentioned, we talked to the school district about parking around here. And as I mentioned about the pole truck route, when this was an elementary school and the need for school buses coming in here and parents to drop off their kids in here, there's a lot of no parking along Pioneer. Well, now it's different. The school's that way. And so with this being an administrative building, we don't need to have a no parking zone along much of Pioneer along this building. So that gives us, after talking with the school district, they have no problem as long as we don't block sight distance for buses trying to get out on the Pioneer down to the east. So this is a great opportunity to have a whole bunch of parking to serve this building, because those of you who work here, those of you who try to visit here during the day, find that lot is full. And so this will give you quite a few more parking spaces to park and use the building. The other thing we didn't talk about last time, and I don't think it was a year ago, I think it was actually October when we were here. So it might seem like talking with us seems like it's been a year, but since we talked, we now have mailboxes going up in downtown. We didn't have that before. We really don't have anything that protects the mailboxes from people parking in front of them, especially if that mailbox is on Pioneer. So we have a kind of a one-stop shop that we worked out with the postmaster, where the requests come into them. We review it for blocking traffic or blocking wheelchair or disabled access down whatever sidewalk or walkway may exist. But instead of getting 2 permits, one from the post office and one from us, because we got what's called an encroachment permit, essentially they just start the request with the post office, we review it, sometimes we've adjusted it, sometimes we said it's fine, and then they're gone. So it really reduces how much money people have to pay to get permits just for a mailbox. So one thing though, as I mentioned, when you got mailboxes put in, we don't have a code like the county does that prohibits parking in front of mailboxes. So that's what we want to talk about as well. Let's go to the next one. We talked about wayfinding signage. We can do that if we identify where we want to have municipal parking lots or where there's areas where there's public parking kind of in congregation rather than just on the side of the street. So that's a longer term discussion, is about a municipal parking lot. You know, we've talked about what happens to police building area, what happens to Park Laundry, what about the little parking area we have at Davis Park. That still needs a more comprehensive discussion, what we do with that, but definitely the signage, once we kind of resolve what that looks like, we can definitely put directional signage where you can find municipal parking. Steve has, under a current code, the ability to locate 2 15-minute parking spaces per block. What we want to do, instead of just saying, oh, Steve, send us a postcard and I got a 15-minute parking space, well, it doesn't quite work that way. One is, these are public parking spaces. We can't designate a space on the public street for a specific business. We can't designate where it goes, but what we want to do is try to work all of that into this whole parking plan. There is under code, 24-hour maximum parking time on Main and Pioneer now. Kind of hard to enforce if they pull up at midnight, unless we have police out there chalking tires and keeping track of that. It's a little difficult to enforce that. I've not heard that that's an issue, other than a few times where people abandon vehicles, but it is something we have factored in here. The last one, pleased to say, with the mayor's help, we did get a community development block grant to improve Sargent Street from Main to 3rd and finish the sidewalk on the west side of Main up to Overlook. That includes a parking lane, and so we'll be adding parking along there. That one will probably be next year when we actually build it. We still have to get the money and have to design what it is, get the permits for that, and build it next year. But we do have the grant. Some of the longer term items I've kind of breezed through. The one I want to focus on is 4th Street. To resolve the site distance on coming out or 4th onto Pioneer, you either have to take a bunch of parking to increase the site distance pulling out onto Pioneer, or you do what you did on 5th. Make it a one-way northbound up to Simons, use Simons to get back over to 3rd or to Main. If we do the one-way on 4th, that does allow us to do a mix of angle parking and parking on the parallel parking on the side. Actually adds parking spaces when we do that. It won't be continuous because of just the way things set up on 4th, but it will get us, resolves the site distance issue, and also adds a few parking spaces in that area. Yes, Randy?
Chuck, that's the intersection in front of the flower shop, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I talked about the towing of wide boats. What we would like to do is, if you notice at each of the intersections, there's a yellow curb that kind of follows for a few feet. We'd like to extend the yellow curves. What that does is it gives either the boat trailer an opportunity at intersections to kind of pull off, let cars go through, or for cars to pull off and let the boats go through. It gives more room to do that without significantly impacting parking. And so that's at least maybe a short-term fix or an interim fix. I don't know what the longer-term fix is, because we did take a look at circulating boats, kind of the pull truck route. The issue is when you come back down Main, try to make that sharp turn onto the overpass, that's a tight turn. And that's even more difficult than what they were doing before. As far as the circulator, it's probably future discussions with C-Tran. I see an opportunity along Hillhurst, especially on like the 4th of July parade days and those big events. We got a lot of parking spaces, both public and even private, along Hillhurst as you're going toward downtown, anchored by Rourke on the south end. And so there should be an opportunity, working with C-Tran, to provide some type of a shuttle park and ride connection from the Rourke, stopping a few places along the way to pick up people, drop them off in downtown, and to do it all again, and then reverse it when the event is done. Let's go to the next one. I had a nice meeting with Randy and Ethan. Ridgefield Craft Brewing, we found out, is an excellent place to foster thoughts and ideas. We did get some interesting ideas, but probably the most realistic
You
one.
can use a port credit card.
I use the city one, it's just, I give them my expense report.
For that audit.
But anyway, again, it's the, one frontage on the 3rd is the pull truck route. Also finding out that there's kind of two exits, they're maintenance exits on the existing building. The port doesn't really have a use for them to be maintenance exits. They probably better is like roll